So much. It's really useful to have you and your insights into this process. And this is what we call active aging, in which age is just a number. You're as important a member of this group as any younger person. When we are able to take that age discrimination out of our heads, that age-based stereotypes out of our heads, then we really start making progress towards a society with equal opportunities for people of all ages. And that is the philosophy behind this active and healthy aging approach. So the definition that we adopted for active aging concept in the Active Aging Index project, we actually started this work in the year 2012, and year 2012 was called the European Year for Active Aging and Solidarity Between Generations. And at the start of that year, even in a very developed Western country context, we learned that although there are lots and lots of documents promoting active aging, but there is no statistical measure that can give us a sense how one country is doing in comparison to another, how one group is doing within a country in comparison to another group. So there was no statistical instrument at the start of a very important process in European policy making, in which they name the year for a certain approach, policy approach. And 2012 was the year of active aging. And so I was commissioned and I was asked to come up with something which they can hold on to as a instrument. And the definition that we used was the situation. Active aging is defined as the situation in which people are able to live healthy, independent and secure lives as they age, and thus they continue to participate in the formal labor market. So labor market is still the key feature in this, as well as engage in other unpaid productive activities such as volunteering, care and care provision to family members. So this was a definition to use and quote very often, but as I would discuss in highlighting with the help of this picture, the active aging index actually uses a much broader definition. So this picture can tell you everything that you need to know about active aging index. And think of this as a pyramid. You know, when you go to a pyramid, you enter from the base, and the base is populated by or constructed by a number of different pillars. So your individual indicators are those pillars in the base on which everything would be based. And once you use those indicators and you find a method to summarize all the information from those indicators to a single number at the top, that is what we call index. So basically what we do is we come up with 22 different indicators which we think are different ways people can actively age. And then aggregate them, all the information in those 22 indicators first to a mid-level aggregation, where we say we aggregate employment indicators into employment domain, social participation or community participation into another participation in society domain. Then we say activating is not just about activity per se, but actually independent, healthy and secure living is another form of activating. So we have another set of indicators which we aggregate into a mid-level aggregation, we call it independent living. And then the fourth domain is about enabling environment. This environment that we want to create in the society, this capacity we want to generate in the society in which people are able to live actively. So then once we are able to do this mid-level aggregation, then we can compare how employment is in comparison to social participation, to independent living, to enabling environment. And then what we do, we aggregate all those 4 domains into a top level number. So basically, that is your top of the pyramid number, which is populated by number of indicators. And we do it separately for men and women. So if nothing else, we can compare how men do in comparison to women in a country. And we say why women do not get enough opportunities to be as actively aging as men. And then we compare how one country is doing very good in this, but not so very good in this. What might be the reason why that country is doing in this domain, and what can it learn from the other countries that are doing well in this case. So it becomes a comparative. If we do it across countries, it gives us a comparative picture in which we can have mutual learning from each other. So let's just quickly go through some of the indicators. The first domain is about employment. So this is about going to an employer, having a job, and doing employment. This is about extension of working careers. This is about delaying in retirement age so that more and more people can work. Then we move away from economic segment to a non-economic segment in which we say is the community participation, social participation is also important. So what voluntary activities they are doing, because that's also important. That we may not be able to put a dollar sign to appreciate the value of their activities, but still they are valuable activities for the society. To what extent they are providing care to their children and grandchildren. Again, we are not able to put a dollar value to that, but it's a very valuable service they are providing to their family. To what extent care is provided to other older adults. Many old women take care of their husbands who require almost full-time care. And that, again, society, if we just restrict ourselves to GDP measurement and everything that comes with a dollar sign, we appreciate. No, actually, we should appreciate this form of activity as well, where people provide care to other older adults in need. And that is linked to this long-term care debate that you are having in your country, that if people are able to provide services within the communities to each other, Older People's Association, within the family to each other, and also in the political policy making, the community level projects and decision making that older people are actively engaged. So we look at this. At the moment we have only 4 indicators, but this could be strengthened further if you are interested in community level activity. Then we say these are all activities, but activating should be more than activities. So if you are able to live independent life, self-reliant life, then that's also part of your activating. And here we look at to what extent people are able to do physical exercise, because if they are doing physical exercise, that is an indication for us that they are able to move about. They are able to go shopping, they are able to do all this, what Dr. Young was saying, instrumental activities. To what extent they have access to healthcare services which facilitate them to live an independent life. So we want to see to what extent there are any unmet needs they experience in that. To what extent they are able to live in their own homes independently of anybody's help. And this is where many of the European services, social services, that they are now helping older people live in their own homes, even if that means spending money to make adjustments in their homes, rather than pushing them into institutions and taking care of them in the institution. They spend money in adjusting their sitting room or their access to toilets and all that. So this is about aging in their own homes. Then we also look at the pension income, the financial security indicators, because we know that income is a strong catalyst of independent living. If you have money in your pocket, you're more able to go out and have eat out in the cafes or go to the theaters or get involved, take your grandchildren for birthday parties and all that. So your activity is very much dependent upon how financially secure you are. what physical safety you feel that when you are coming out of the home and to be engaged in community activities, you're not fearful of the crimes in that situation. What lifelong learning, this teaching, what kind of learning opportunities there are in which would help them live independently. The fourth domain is about capacity and enabling environment. Capacity is how long one is living. That's one capacity, how many years left at the age of 55. And what part of that age is spent in good health. So we're looking at healthy life expectancy. And then we are looking at mental health, well-being, or to what extent mentally you are in a good state. That also determines your capacity. To what extent you have access to ICT, the information and communication technology. To what extent you have social connectedness, which is you have friends and neighbors who you could rely on in case you need help. And that also determines how independent you are able to live. What is your lifelong learning opportunities? What do you learn? What is your educational attainment? That also the human capital that you have. Sometimes people with better education are better able to find ways to offer their services to voluntary sectors or be involved in the curriculum. So all that. Some of the indicators here could easily come to here, but some of the indicators from this domain can go there. But that's not the discussion we want to get into. The main thing is that we are trying to capture these important aspects of activity, which are put in some cases here, some cases there. These are indeed very clearly distinctive dimensions. So these are 22 indicators, and the decision why these indicators partly is we had an expert group, almost 30 people who were representing different sectors who advised us in doing this work, but also because of the data availability. Sometimes we wanted to get something really important, but there was not enough data. So this is a compromise measure in that sense that if you don't have the data, you can't include that here. So this is the structure. Remember, there are 4 domains. So to start with, the real information comes from indicators. That those indicators become domain-specific aggregations, domain-specific summary, and then all of that leads to one single number, which is summarizing all the information we have in these 22 indicators. And if you look at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that the whole world is now crazy about, many of these aspects, especially income security, good health and well-being, gender equality, decent work, all of these different aspects are coming into, are covered in the activity index. The key features of activity index, we are focusing on the generation of 55 plus. This is not to say they are older persons. This is saying this is about the age that we start thinking about our old age phase of life, or later phase of life. But although we are linking, we are just focusing on that age group, this is no way denial of the fact that outcomes in that phase of life is linked to our experiences in earlier phases. We are measuring outcomes rather than processes or determinants. We are not measuring well-being as such. We are measuring activating, which contributes to well-being. This is also a theoretical, conceptual debate we could get into if we need to. Also, I'm not drawing any value judgment that a single model of active and healthy aging should be prescribed for all nations all over the world. Putting them all in a single graph or using the same method to measure active aging for all the countries doesn't necessarily mean I'm saying they should all follow one single model. Every country has its own contacts, has their own legacies, has their own traditions and cultures, and that decides what activating they should do. Activating indicators focus on outcomes rather than processes. They are not about well-being. In fact, I have constructed two other indices. One is Global Watch Index for Outbreak International, where we have well-being, but also for Age UK, I've constructed another index called well-being. These are the results from Activating Index. These are 22 EU countries, and what we are showing that Sweden, Denmark, the Nordic countries, UK, Finland, Ireland are the best performing countries. We show that the Central and Eastern European countries do not perform that well. They are at the bottom. And there are middle performing countries, which include the major countries like France, Germany, and Spain in them. And this is basically giving the summary number at the top of the pyramid. So one number to decide which country is doing better. But this is more important for your purposes. So this result is overall index, that top of the pyramid number. This is the employment, that first domain. This is the social participation, the second domain. This is independent living, the third domain, and this is fourth domain of enabling environment. And this is the overall number. So if you look at Sweden, Sweden basically overall is at the top. Also at the top for employment, almost at the top for social participation, almost at the top for the third, independent living, and back on the top of the enabling environment. So Sweden does quite well across the board, you could say. But let's look at the next, which is perhaps the richest welfare state in Europe, and that's Denmark. Denmark is almost as good as Sweden at the top, and does also equally well in employment. But see Denmark where it gets to in the second domain. So it's the best performing countries in terms of overall number, but when we look at one of the domains, we see that it's not doing as well as its neighboring country or other countries in that part. So straight away, if a Danish policymaker comes to me and says, oh, well, he would first say, oh, we are top performing countries, so you think we don't need to do anything? I would say no, but look at your results here. And so this instrument is showing you that despite performing quite well, you still have a scope for improvement. And where your spending should be going, and that should be in this domain. And we will point to not just domain, but we will point to individual indicators where Denmark can bring about policy reforms to improve its position. If you look at Denmark, it's back on the top level position in the third domain, back in the top level position in the fourth domain. So for a very well-performing country, we can show that through the help of this instrument, we can still point them towards policy priorities, what they should be doing if they want to promote active and healthy aging. So what learnings we can draw from this? The activating index approach focusing on human capital of older persons, which we have discussed, and it's an evidence gathering tool which provides strong policy insights, and it's an index that has been received very well. In fact, Mexico only recently started extending it. Now we have Vietnam, we have Taiwan. I have now done it for Korea, China, and Japan. For many years ago, I've done for US, Canada. So it's a country, it's an index that in its EU version has been extended all over the world. This is the third part that I will cover in the next 10 minutes. So, having done this work for European countries, we were asked to do this work for China. China gave us some money to do this project. So they said they want exactly the same definition as used for EU version, European Union version of the activating index. And it was obvious that they wanted to see what learnings they can draw with a comparison to European countries. But we also included another country, Korea, and though in this picture I don't have those results, we also included Japan. Basically, exactly replicating the work of the European Union Activating Index to Korea, Japan, and China. What have we learned? So we found that although the importance of promoting activating is well understood in China, government should be investing more resources to promote active navigating, and that we can say for the majority of the countries in this region. There's a lot of talk about activating, but when it comes to really spending money, there's not very much happening. The activating index framework provides them that information, what they should be doing. The EU version, when it is replicated to China and Korea, what we find is that China is quite well ranked. So is Korea. So we have 28 EU countries, we have China and Korea in it, and we found China doing very well amongst the top performing countries. But that's where really interesting bits come, because when we look at the employment, China and Korea is also top ranked. But if you look at the second domain, which is about social participation, China comes in the middle, and Korea goes right at the bottom. If you go to the third dimension, you see both China and Korea are right at the bottom. And then we go to the enabling environment. Korea does better than China, and China is amongst the lower ranked countries. And when we presented these results, although there was lots of interest, but there was somebody in the audience who said, well, this is not relevant. This is not an exercise which is relevant for Asian context. So very quickly, I'm moving on to, so there was also discussion that EU activating index require modification. The first challenge we faced when we started doing that modification, there was not enough data. Because remember, we want nationally representative data. We want data which provides information for men as well as women. So we had data problem, but I'm hoping that in the future the data problem would be less. The second challenge is to define a new activating index, which is much more useful for Asian context. So we come up with this new index, which has 19 indicators and 4 domains. And the important revisions, though there are many revisions in terms of definitions, but in terms of revising it, what the first thing we did is that independent living indicator. The independent living indicator was assuming, and that was true in the European context, that when you are able to live independent of your children and family members, then you are having a better activating experience. Because the majority of older people showed preferences towards being able to live independently. We thought coming to Asia, we thought that's not actually very meaningful. Here people draw pleasure from the fact that they are living with their children. So, and what we are trying to capture from this process is how independent they are. So we actually started using now a direct indicator of independent living, which is the activities of daily living, how they are able to live independently in their day-to-day life. And that's a very strong indicator, which now looking back, we should have actually used that in the original index as well. The second thing another thing we did is we were using an indicator called material deprivation, in which we looked at 10 items, whether you have television, whether you have washing machine, whether you have money to go on holidays. And when we looked at those questions, we found that they did not carry much meaning in the current day world of Asian countries. Majority have mobile phones now. Majority have washing machines. Majority have refrigerators. This used to be a good indicator for material wealth, say 15, 20 years ago. And in the current prosperous societies of Asia, those are almost, everybody has those durables. So we thought a better measure of material wealth is whether they own their homes. in which they live. Because that really gives you this additional security that you have your own home in which you are living. So instead of looking at fridge and durables of different types. So that's another indicator that we also political participation. Remember, one of the indicators was political participation. In China in particular, but I don't know to what extent that is true here as well. But true also in Korea, when the word political activity comes, it becomes a strong negative connotation. It carries a negative, as if you are protesting against the bosses. So nobody in the survey responds yes to that. And there was very little information. In fact, when you will see the results in detail, you find only 1 or 2% that dare to say yes, they are politically active. But then we went to the true spirit of that indicator. We are not interested whether they are politically protesting against the government. We are interested whether to what extent they are active in civic life, active in some kind of community, even if it's a religious activity, they are active so that they are engaged with the other things. So we revised that indicator to be civic and religious participation, in which they are involved in some kind of community work or some sort of religious gathering in which they can talk to other older people or younger people and engage. Another indicator that we included is subjective health, which we think is also a strong predictor of enabling environment. That if you are feeling in your head much more satisfied, then that's more likely to generate a better enabling environment. That's a strong indicator of better enablement. So in this way we make revisions, but this is the first time we are putting it out, and I'm already thinking of 1 or 2 indicators here which we could bring in or revise. And for now, we have, for these 10 countries, and I would be very interested to know what data sets we have for Taiwan, and if we could find a project which could fund that work. For now, we have this funding from UNESCAP, and we are doing the work for 2 countries. One is using Indonesian Family Life Survey, and the other is the Thai study on health, aging, and retirement. So these are the first results that they are coming up with. We already see that for the red bar is for Thailand and the blue bar is for Indonesia, and we see that Thailand does better than Indonesia. And if we look at their differences across the 4 domains, we see exactly the opposite being true in the employment domain. In fact, Indonesia does better than Thailand in here. And in the second domain, also Indonesia does better. It is the 3rd and the 4th domain where Thailand does so much better than Indonesia that it basically overall. Which basically to me, it shows that how useless it is to just look at the top number. We should just take it, understand it, but don't put too much emphasis on that. The real information is there in the domain specific. So Thailand could, Indonesia for instance could say, what are the aspects that Thailand is able to do better in this domain? What are the indicators that are responsible for Thailand doing better so that we could focus on improving our situation by focusing on those indicators, those aspects of activity. Similarly, we could look at it here. And similarly, Indonesia would say, well, if you're doing better, what might be the reasons for doing better so that we could continue doing better? So I will just spend 1 more minute to take you, zoom into those aspects where we say that's where Thais are doing better than Indonesians. If you look at social participation is care to grandchildren. And you see the differences. In the other indicators, the differences are not that much. So where really Thais are doing better than Indonesians is care to grandchildren. So Indonesians might start thinking about what are the reasons why they are not able to do as well as the Thai do. So that's one aspect. And then if we go to the next domain, you could see especially no ADL difficulty. So something that Thai older population is able to do, which Indonesians are falling back. Relative median income is another strong indicator. And that shows that, which is basically what is the median income of elderly in comparison to median income of the rest of the population. And here we see that Indonesians are really falling short in comparison to. So what we are saying here is that in the average income that Indonesian elderly are receiving, really falling short in comparison to the rest of the society, and that's especially we learn that by comparing it to what is the situation in Thailand. So this is basically the whole motivation behind this, that we are not doing this for fun. We are basically doing it with a very specific purpose, that we want to help policymakers locate which is the area that they can spend their money, or which is the area where people can more focus on if they are interested in promoting activity. I stop here because I've already taken 2-3 minutes more than my allocated time. So thank you so much.